The morning sun rose over the hills of Elysium, casting a golden glow across the fields and buildings of New Haven Colony. Governor Kate Lawson stood at the window of her office, watching farmers head to their fields and children walk to school. After 12 years, the colony had grown from a few prefab shelters to a thriving community of 3 million people. Her moment of peace was interrupted by a soft chime. "Governor, we've detected unusual activity in the outer system," said Olivia Grant, her communications specialist. Olivia's face on the screen looked worried, her blonde hair pulled back tightly. "What kind of activity?" Kate asked, setting down her coffee. "Unknown ships, at least 20 of them. They're not responding to hails." Kate frowned. "Alert Security Chief Riggs immediately." Alan Riggs arrived minutes later, his uniform wrinkled as if he'd dressed in a hurry. "It's nothing to worry about, Governor. Probably sensor ghosts. We've been having issues with the outer array for weeks." "I don't think these are ghosts," Olivia said, typing rapidly at her console. "I'm picking up encrypted transmissions, nothing like our standard protocols." "Run it through all known communication patterns," Kate ordered, "and put the defense grid on standby, just in case." Alan shook his head. "With all due respect, that's an overreaction. We have trade ships due from Earth this week. It's probably them, just off schedule." Something in Kate's gut told her this wasn't a false alarm. New Haven was the farthest human colony, established on the edge of explored space. They were vulnerable out here. Across the colony, engineer Peter Mason was deep in the maintenance tunnels beneath the main power plant. At 26, he was one of the colony's brightest minds, responsible for keeping the fusion reactors running smoothly. His wife and 2 young daughters were expecting him home for lunch. The first blast hit without warning. The ground shook so hard that Peter was thrown against the wall. Alarms blared as emergency lights flashed red. "What the hell?" he muttered, grabbing his toolkit and sprinting toward the exit. In the command center, chaos erupted. Multiple ships entering atmosphere. Olivia shouted over the noise of secondary explosions. "They're firing on the colony." "Get the defense grid online," Kate ordered, but it was already too late. "They've taken out the main defense tower," Alan reported, his earlier skepticism replaced by shock. "These aren't sensor ghosts. We're under attack." Outside, the sky filled with alien vessels. They were sleek and black, moving with impossible speed. Green energy beams cut through buildings like they were made of paper. People ran screaming in the streets as structures collapsed around them. Peter emerged from the tunnels to find the world on fire. The housing district, where his family lived, was already engulfed in flames. "No," he screamed, running toward the burning buildings. The colony's few defense ships launched, only to be destroyed seconds later. Their weapons barely scratched the alien vessels. Kate ordered emergency evacuation protocols. "Get as many people to the ships as possible," she commanded, helping wounded colonists toward the spaceport. The attack had been precisely targeted. Communication arrays, defense systems, and power plants were hit first, leaving the colony crippled. Peter searched desperately through the rubble of his home, calling for his wife and daughters. What he found broke him. He stood frozen, tears streaming down his face, until a passing emergency worker pulled him away. "The cargo ship Persistence is still intact," Captain Frank Collins reported to Kate as they reached the spaceport. "We can take maybe 200 people." "There are 3 million in this colony," Kate protested. Frank's face was grim, "and most of them are already dead. We need to get out while we can." In the chaos, Peter stumbled onto the Persistence, moving like a man in a trance. Around him, the surviving colonists wept as they watched their home burn. The ship lifted off, dodging alien fire. Through the viewport, they saw the full scale of destruction. New Haven, 12 years of human achievement, reduced to ash in less than an hour. As the Persistence escaped into space, Kate looked at the stunned survivors. "Does anyone know who they were? Why they attacked us?" No one answered. The aliens had struck without warning or mercy. "They'll pay for this," Peter said, his voice hollow. "Whoever they are, they'll pay." The Persistence accelerated away from Elysium, carrying the last survivors of humanity's furthest reach into the darkness of space. The Persistence drifted through the darkness of space, its engines running silent. 2 weeks had passed since the destruction of New Haven. Inside, the ship's cramped cargo hold had been converted into living quarters for the survivors. The mood was somber, faces hollow with grief and shock. Noah Wells hunched over the communications console, dark circles under his eyes. For days, he had tried to contact Earth using the quantum entanglement communicator, a device that should work across any distance. "Anything?" Kate asked, approaching him with a cup of coffee. Noah shook his head. "They cut all the TUEC links before attacking. It wasn't just random destruction. They deliberately isolated us first." "So Earth doesn't know what happened," Kate said quietly. "They have no idea what's coming." In the engine room, Peter worked tirelessly, barely stopping to eat or sleep. The Persistence was an old cargo vessel, never designed for speed or long journeys. Around him, parts and tools floated in the zero-gravity environment. Frank drifted through the doorway. "You should rest. You've been at this for 30 hours straight." "I can't rest," Peter replied, not looking up from the engine components he was modifying. "Every minute we waste, those aliens could be moving toward other colonies. Toward Earth. What exactly are you trying to do here?" Frank asked, examining the complex modifications. "The standard FTL drive is too slow. At normal speed, it would take us 2 years to reach Earth." Peter connected 2 components that weren't designed to work together. "I think I can push it harder. Much harder." Frank frowned. "That's extremely dangerous. You could tear the ship apart." "We're already dead if we do nothing," Peter said, his eyes finally meeting Frank's. "My family is gone. Everyone I loved died on that planet. I won't let that happen to Earth." Later that day, Kate called a meeting in the main cargo hold. All 187 survivors gathered to hear their options. "We have 2 choices," Kate said. "We can head to the Proxima colony. It's closer and safer with our current ship capabilities." "But Proxima has even fewer defenses than New Haven," No pointed out. "If these aliens attack there, we'd just be walking into another slaughter." "Our second option," Kate continued, "is Peter's plan to modify our engines for a direct run to Earth. It's risky. The ship could break apart during the jump." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Frank stepped forward. "As captain of this vessel, I need to make it clear, this modification has never been tested. The chance of survival is low. And the chance of survival if Earth is caught unprepared is 0, Peter said. His voice was steady despite his exhaustion. "I lost everything. We all lost everything. But we can make sure no one else does." A vote was taken. The decision was nearly unanimous. For the next 3 weeks, everyone worked to prepare the ship. Peter led the engine modifications while others reinforced the hull and secured their limited supplies. During off hours, the survivors documented everything they remembered about the attack. They analyzed footage, created detailed descriptions of the alien ships, and compiled technical data. Peter barely slept. When he did, he dreamed of his daughter's laughter, only to wake up to the crushing reality of their loss. His grief transformed into determination, then into innovation. Late one night, he had a breakthrough. The aliens' weapons weren't just destructive, he explained to Kate and Frank, pointing to his calculations. They operated on principles we've never seen before. If we can understand and replicate them, we might be able to defend against them. On the day of the jump, tension filled the ship. Everyone strapped into makeshift crash positions. "Engine modifications complete," Peter reported from his station. "FTL drive charged to 300% capacity. It's going to be rough." Frank looked at Kate, then at the frightened faces of the survivors. "This is for New Haven," he said, placing his hand on the activation switch. The ship shuddered violently as the modified engines engaged. Metal groaned and warning alarms blared. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of light as the Persistence tore through space, faster than any human vessel had ever traveled. They were Earth's only warning, racing against time with a message written in the ashes of 3 million souls. 3 months after beginning their desperate journey, the Persistence limped into Earth's solar system. The ship was barely holding together. Hull breaches had been patched with emergency sealant, and the engines sputtered on their last reserves of power. "We made it," Frank whispered, his voice hoarse with disbelief as the blue planet appeared on their view screen. Earth's defense fleet approached cautiously, weapons locked on the damaged vessel. The survivors had expected this reception. After all, they were arriving unannounced in a battered ship. "This is Admiral Stephanie Carson of Earth Defense Command. Identify yourself immediately," came the stern voice over the comm system. Kate stepped forward. "This is Governor Kate Lawson of New Haven Colony. We are the only survivors. Our colony has been destroyed by an unknown alien force." Silence followed. Then, "Stand by for boarding and verification." Within hours, the survivors were transferred to a space station orbiting Earth. Medical teams treated their injuries while security officers took statements. The data they had gathered about the attack was uploaded to military servers for analysis. 2 days later, Earth's United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting. Kate, Frank, Noah, and Peter were brought to address the assembled leaders. The chamber fell silent as images of New Haven's destruction played on large screens. Kate spoke first, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. 3 million people died in less than an hour. The aliens gave no warning and accepted no surrender. Their technology far exceeds our own, and they may be coming here next. Murmurs spread through the chamber. A representative from the European Union stood up. "How can we be certain this wasn't simply an isolated incident? Perhaps it was a misunderstanding or a territorial dispute." "It was genocide," Peter said sharply. "There was no misunderstanding. They disabled our communications first to prevent warning Earth. That shows planning. Intent." Admiral Carson stepped forward with her analysis team. "The data from the Persistence confirms an organized attack by an unknown species. We're calling them Vrexians based on the signal patterns we've analyzed." "What are our options?" asked the Chinese representative. "We prepare for war," Admiral Carson said simply. Arguments erupted across the chamber. Some nations insisted on trying diplomatic outreach first. Others doubted the threat was as severe as reported. Political divisions that had simmered for years suddenly threatened to boil over when unity was most needed. Kate watched in growing frustration. "While you argue," she finally shouted over the noise, "the enemy moves closer." New Haven had the same debates. "We thought we had time. We were wrong." The room grew quiet. "I have lost my home," she continued. "These people have lost families, friends, everything. We didn't come all this way, nearly dying in the process, to watch Earth make the same mistake." Dr. William Porter, Earth's leading physicist, had been reviewing Peter's technical data. He stepped forward now. "The weapons used against New Haven operate on principles we've theorized but never achieved. If these aliens attack Earth with this technology, our current defenses will fail just as New Haven's did." Peter stood up. "But I've been studying their attack patterns and technology. I believe we can develop countermeasures. We need to start immediately." The President of the United States addressed the room. "I propose the immediate formation of a Homeworld Defense Council with emergency powers to coordinate our response. All nations must contribute resources." "And what of our inactive shipyards?" asked the Japanese delegate. "They've been dormant since the Mars colonies were established." "Reactivate them all," Admiral Carson replied. "Every one of them." By evening, the vote was taken. Earth would prepare for war on a scale never before seen in human history. Military reserves were called up. Factories began converting to defense production. The shipyards that had been silent for decades hummed back to life. Peter found himself assigned to a top-secret research facility with Dr. Porter, working to develop new shield technology based on the Phyrexian weapons data. As he looked out the window at night, seeing the lights of a planet that still didn't understand what was coming, Peter made a silent promise to his lost family. This world would not fall. This time, humanity would be ready. 6 months passed since the survivors of New Haven arrived on Earth. The planet had transformed. Cities now had defense shields glowing faintly overhead. Military vehicles moved through streets. Recruitment centers had lines stretching for blocks. In the mountains of Colorado, Peter worked day and night in a massive underground lab. Around him, the brightest minds on Earth developed weapons and shields based on his initial designs. Dark circles marked his eyes, but a new purpose burned within him. "We've done it," Dr. William Porter said, entering the lab with a tablet. The older scientist's face showed rare excitement. The shield test worked perfectly. It absorbed the energy weapon at full power. Peter nodded, allowing himself a small smile. "And the production timeline?" "We can begin installing them on the new ships next week," William replied. Across the facility, in a separate lab, physicist Diane Parker called them over urgently. "I found something in the Phyrexian weapon signatures," she said, pointing to her computer screen. "There's a quantum fluctuation pattern. It's like a fingerprint, or maybe a weakness." Peter studied the data. "If we could disrupt this pattern, we could potentially shut down their weapons," Diane finished. "Maybe even their engines." Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, the first of the new warships prepared for its maiden flight. The vessel, named Vengeance, was unlike anything humans had built before. Sleek and powerful, it incorporated the new shield technology and experimental weapon systems. Kate Lawson stood on the bridge beside Admiral Carson, watching as the crew ran final checks. 6 months ago, Kate had been a colonial governor. Now she served as diplomatic officer for the United Defense Force, tasked with finding any potential allies against the Phyrexian threat. "How many ships will we have ready by year's end?" Kate asked. "At current production rates, about 500, Admiral Carson answered. "NASA engineer Greg Martinez developed new manufacturing methods that cut production time by 70%. We're building ships faster than we ever thought possible." "Will it be enough?" Kate wondered. The Admiral's face remained grim. "It has to be." On Earth, military training facilities operated at full capacity. Millions of civilians volunteered or were drafted into the newly formed United Earth Defense Force. They trained on simulators based on the fighting data from New Haven. Frank Collins, now promoted to fleet captain, commanded the prototype vessel Horizon. His mission: reconnaissance into deep space to gather intelligence on the Phyrexian forces. "We leave tomorrow," he told Peter during a rare shared meal in the base cafeteria. "We'll try to determine their numbers and movements without engaging." Peter pushed food around his plate. "The new cloaking technology should keep you hidden, but don't take unnecessary risks." Frank smiled slightly. "Says the man who nearly tore a ship apart to get us to Earth." "That was necessary," Peter replied quietly. Later that evening, Peter stood with William, Diane, and Greg on an observation platform as the 100th new warship launched from the Nevada shipyards. Below them, thousands of workers cheered as the massive vessel rose into the night sky. 100 ships in 6 months, Greg said proudly. "When I designed these new assembly methods, I wasn't sure they would work at this scale." "Every day we get stronger," William added. "The question is whether it will be enough when they come." Peter watched the ship until it was just a dot of light among the stars. "We still don't know enough about them. What they want, why they attacked us." Lisa Reeves, in intelligence, thinks she's found patterns in their movements, Diane mentioned. "She believes they've conquered other species before us." Peter nodded, his expression hardening. "Then we'll be the species that stops them." That night, as he finally slept, Peter didn't dream of the family he lost. Instead, he dreamed of ships rising by the thousands, a human armada sailing to meet the enemy that had made the fatal mistake of awakening Earth's full potential. In space, the Vengeance began its shakedown cruise, its weapons powered up for the first time. Humanity was done running. The ashes of New Haven had seeded not defeat, but fierce determination, and it was growing stronger every day. The Horizon drifted silently through the Tau Ceti system, its advanced cloaking technology hiding it from detection. On the bridge, Frank Collins and his crew monitored their sensors with intense focus. After 3 weeks of careful reconnaissance, they had found what they feared: a massive Vrexian forward base. "Count at least 80 warships," reported the sensor officer. "They're building something big on the third moon." Frank studied the grainy images. "Record everything. We're leaving in 30 minutes. Earth needs this information immediately." Back on Earth, Lisa Reeves and her intelligence team worked around the clock. Screens covered the walls of their underground facility, showing star maps and intercepted alien transmissions. Lisa had dark red hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that rarely blinked during her 18-hour shifts. "I've got it," she announced suddenly, jumping from her chair. "The pattern in their communications. It's a deployment schedule." Her team gathered around her screen as she explained. They follow the same pattern with each invasion. First, they establish forward bases in nearby systems. Then they isolate the target. Finally, they attack in full force. Noah Wells, who now worked with the communications division, looked grim. "How long do we have?" "Based on their current movements," Lisa replied, "about 8 months before they reach Earth." In orbit above Mars, Kate Lawson met with representatives of the Alteri, a species that had escaped Vrexian conquest. The aliens were tall with silvery skin and 4 arms. They had responded to humanity's desperate messages seeking allies. "We lost 2 worlds to the Vrexians before we fled," the Alteri ambassador explained through a translator device. "They destroy any civilization they encounter. It is their way." "Why?" Kate asked. "What do they want?" "They believe they are the only species worthy of space travel. All others must be eliminated." Kate frowned. "Will you help us fight them?" The ambassador hesitated. "We are few now, but we can share our knowledge of their tactics." Meanwhile, Peter had developed a network of automated drones that could travel undetected through Vrexian space. The tiny machines gathered crucial intelligence about enemy movements across 12 star systems. "Their empire is vast," Peter explained to Admiral Carson, showing her the new star map. "They've conquered at least 7 other civilizations, and now they're coming for us," the Admiral said. Peter nodded. "But we know something they don't. They've never faced a species that fought back effectively. They expect us to be easy prey like New Haven was." The first real test came 3 weeks later. A small Vrexian scout group entered the Alpha Centauri system, likely unaware that humans had detected them. Admiral Carson ordered a response. 5 human ships, led by Captain Julia Winters aboard the destroyer Swift Justice, engaged the Vrexian vessels. The new shield technology held against the enemy's energy weapons. The quantum disruptors that Diane had developed caused the Vrexian ships to lose power temporarily. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. 4 Vrexian ships destroyed, 1 escaped. "First blood to humanity," Julia reported back to Earth Command. Their tactics were predictable. They didn't expect resistance. The news of this small victory spread across Earth, boosting morale. Recruitment rates doubled overnight. Production of warships accelerated further. Peter watched from a viewport as his newly commissioned vessel, the Reckoning, completed its final tests. As one of the few who had witnessed the Vrexian attack firsthand, he had been given command despite his lack of military background. "Sir, we've received new orders," his executive officer said. "We're joining Battle Group 7 for a probing mission into Vrexian territory." Peter nodded. "How many ships in our group?" 20, sir. All equipped with the latest weapons systems." On the far edge of human space, the Horizon raced back toward Earth with its vital intelligence. Frank's face was grim as they detected a massive surge of Vrexian vessels entering the area they had just left. "They're gathering in force," he told his crew. "Much larger than we anticipated." The communication officer looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Sir, we're picking up a transmission from Phyrexian High Command. They're specifically mentioning humans." Frank's blood ran cold. They know about us now. For the first time, humanity had caught the full attention of the Phyrexian Empire. The real war was about to begin. 1 year after the fall of New Haven, Earth launched its first major offensive. 10,000 ships, the largest fleet humans had ever assembled, jumped into the Ta City system. Admiral Stephanie Carson commanded from the flagship Defiance, with Captain Julia Winters leading the vanguard. "All ships report ready," Julia's voice came through the command channel. "Phyrexian forces detected on the far side of the gas giant." Stephanie stood tall on the bridge, her gray hair cut short, her uniform perfectly pressed. "Remember New Haven," she said simply. "Begin the attack." The human fleet moved in perfect formation, using tactics developed over months of smaller engagements. The Phyrexians responded with a massive force of their own, clearly surprised by the size and coordination of the human attack. The battle unfolded across the entire system. Human ships used their new weapons to disable Phyrexian vessels before closing in for the kill. The quantum disruptors proved devastatingly effective, shutting down enemy shields and weapon systems. Peter Mason commanded the Reckoning as part of the third attack wave. His ship carried experimental weapons that he had helped design. As they engaged a Phyrexian cruiser, Peter felt a cold satisfaction at seeing the enemy ship break apart under his attack. "Sir, the forward base on the moon is attempting to evacuate," his tactical officer reported. "Not today," Peter replied. "Target their launch platforms." The Reckoning's main guns fired, destroying the escape vessels before they could lift off. For the first time, the Phyrexians were the ones running. Kate Lawson watched the battle from a secure communication center on Mars. Beside her stood 3 Alteri representatives, their silver skin reflecting the light from the tactical displays. "Your species fights with unexpected skill," the senior Alteri said. "No one has ever pushed back the Phyrexians this effectively." "We're just getting started," Kate replied. "If your people can provide more technical assistance, we can improve our weapons further." The Alteri hesitated, then nodded. "We will share our full knowledge database. Perhaps your humans truly can defeat them." The battle for Ta City raged for 3 days. By the end, the Phyrexian base lay in ruins, and 64 of their warships had been destroyed. Humanity had lost 27 vessels, a painful toll, but far better than anyone had expected. As the human fleet regrouped, sensors detected a new wave of Phyrexian ships entering the system. These vessels were larger, with more advanced weaponry. "They've called in reinforcements," Stephanie announced to the fleet commanders. "More than we anticipated." Julia's face on the screen looked concerned. "We can't hold against that many." "Not yet." "Agreed," Stephanie said after a moment's thought. "All ships prepare for strategic withdrawal. We've done what we came to do." The human fleet jumped out of the system in perfect coordination, leaving behind the burning wreckage of the Phyrexian forward base. It was a tactical retreat, but everyone knew it represented something historic. The first successful large-scale human offensive against the enemy. Back on Earth, the news was met with celebrations. For the first time since learning of the Phyrexian threat, people allowed themselves to feel real hope. In a secure meeting room beneath Geneva, Frank Collins delivered his full report to the Earth Defense Council. His reconnaissance missions had mapped vast portions of Phyrexian territory. Based on all available data, he explained, showing a holographic star map, the Phyrexians control approximately 200 star systems. Their empire is large but spread thin. "And their homeworld?" asked the council chair. "Here," Frank pointed to a star near the center of the map, heavily defended, but not invulnerable. Lisa Reeves stepped forward with her intelligence analysis. "The Phyrexian leadership structure is hierarchical. They're ruled by a high command of 7 elders. Our victory at Ta City has caused unprecedented discord among them. They've never faced a serious military challenge before, Frank added. They don't know how to respond to a species that can actually fight back. As the meeting concluded, Peter was called to a secure communication channel. The face that appeared belonged to the Lidvrexian commander he had seen during the New Haven attack. Human. The alien said in a rough translation, "Your resistance is noted. Your species is now classified as a significant threat." Peter stared back coldly. "We're just getting started." For the first time since the war began, the Vrexian High Command felt fear. 2 years into the war, Earth had transformed beyond recognition. What began as desperate preparation had evolved into a vast war machine spanning the solar system. The shipyards of Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt produced vessels at an incredible rate, 1,000 new warships each month. Kate Lawson stood in a large conference room on the diplomatic station orbiting Jupiter. Around her sat representatives from 5 alien species, all victims of Vrexian aggression. The Alteri had helped find these survivors and bring them together. "The Vrexians destroyed our homeworld just as they did your colony," said a reptilian Navar diplomat. "But we never had the chance to fight back." "Together, we can do more than fight back," Kate replied. "We can end their threat forever." Each species brought unique knowledge and technology. The Alteri provided advanced shield designs. The Navar shared biological data about Vrexian weaknesses. The crystalline Sith offered faster-than-light communication methods. The insectoid Carix brought stealth technology beyond anything humans had developed. The aquatic Malorians provided star maps of regions unknown to Earth. Earth's scientists, led by Peter and William, worked to integrate these alien technologies with human innovations. The resulting hybrid systems surpassed anything either humans or their allies could have created alone. "The new quantum link engines are ready for installation," William told Admiral Carson during a meeting at Earth Command. "They'll make our ships 30% faster and more maneuverable than the Vrexian fleet." "And the weapons?" she asked. Peter displayed a hologram of a new device. "We call it the Cascade Disruptor. It targets the specific frequency patterns in Vrexian technology that Diane discovered. One hit can disable an entire Vrexian battle group if they're using shared communication channels." In the shipyards above Earth, the 500,000th human vessel was christened. Named the Phoenix, it represented the culmination of human engineering and alien technology. Crowds watched on screens worldwide as the massive ship moved out of its construction dock, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. Frank Collins, now an admiral himself, coordinated intelligence operations across Vrexian space. His stealth ships had mapped their territory completely, identifying command centers and supply lines. "We've found something critical," he reported to the Allied Command Council. "The Vrexian leadership structure is more vulnerable than we thought. They rely on a central command network to coordinate their forces." He showed them images of a massive space station orbiting the Vrexian homeworld. "This is their central command. All strategic decisions flow from here. If we can neutralize it, their forces will be thrown into chaos." Admiral Carson nodded thoughtfully. "It's time for Operation Phoenix." The plan was bold and dangerous. A massive, multi-pronged attack on Vrexian core systems. It would require every ship the Alliance could muster. "Our current fleet stands at 693,000 vessels," Stephanie announced to the War Council. "With the Allied ships, we'll have just over 700,000. 700,000 ships," Kate repeated softly. From the ashes of one colony, Peter stood on the bridge of his new command, the dreadnought Retribution. Through the viewport, he watched as the largest armada in the history of any species assembled. Ships of various designs stretched as far as the eye could see, a testament to the unified response to Vrexian aggression. His second-in-command handed him a datapad. "Final attack coordinates received, sir. We'll lead Strike Force Alpha against their command structure." Peter nodded, remembering the burning ruins of New Haven, the family he had lost. "Begin final preparations. We jump in 6 hours." Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Kate finalized evacuation plans for civilians on conquered worlds. Frank reviewed last-minute intelligence with his team. Admiral Carson gave her final address to the combined forces. For too long, the Vrexians have spread terror throughout the galaxy, she said, her voice reaching every ship. They believe destroying one human colony would silence us. Instead, it awakened the full might of humanity and our allies. As the final hour approached, Peter looked at a small photo he kept on his command console, his wife and daughters, smiling in the sunlight of Elysium, before the fall of New Haven. "We're ready," he whispered to them, "and they have no idea what's coming." The largest battle in galactic history began with perfect silence. 700,000 ships appeared simultaneously across 50 Vrexian-controlled systems. The enemy had no warning. Peter led Strike Force Alpha toward the Vrexian Central Command, a massive structure orbiting their homeworld. 100,000 ships followed him into the heart of enemy territory. "All ships, engage quantum disruptors," Peter ordered. His voice was calm, betraying none of the emotion he felt at finally bringing the fight to the architects of New Haven's destruction. The Vrexian defense fleet scrambled to respond, but they had never faced an attack of this magnitude. Their carefully organized defensive lines broke within minutes as human and allied ships struck from multiple vectors. On the Vrexian homeworld, panic spread through the ruling council. For generations, they had conquered without serious resistance. Now their secure communications were filled with reports of defeats across their empire. "The human vessels are approaching Central Command," reported a Vrexian officer, fear evident in his voice. "They're using technology we've never seen before." The Retribution led the final assault on the command station. Peter stood resolute as his ship absorbed enemy fire. The advanced shields, combining human ingenuity with altari design, held firm. "Target their main power core," Peter commanded. "Fire when ready." The Cascade Disruptor fired, sending waves of energy that shut down every system on the massive Vrexian station. Across 50 battlefronts, the same scene repeated as human weapons neutralized Vrexian technology. Kate coordinated from the diplomatic vessel Unity, making real-time decisions about rescued civilians from conquered worlds. "Get those transport ships to the evacuation points," she directed. "These people have been under Vrexian control for decades. They need immediate medical attention." On planets throughout Vrexian space, subjugated species rose up as word spread of the massive Allied attack. Many Vrexian colonial administrators surrendered rather than face the combined wrath of their former victims. Frank's intelligence ships targeted Vrexian communication relays, ensuring their forces remained divided and confused. "Their command structure is collapsing," he reported to Admiral Carson. "They can't coordinate a response." After 3 days of fighting, the outcome was clear. The Vrexian forces were defeated across their empire. Their once mighty fleet lay in ruins. Central Command had surrendered. Peter stood with Kate and Frank on the observation deck of the Retribution, looking down at the Vrexian homeworld. "We could destroy it," Peter said quietly. "After everything they did, no one would blame us." Kate placed her hand on his shoulder. "That's what they would do. We're better than that." Instead of orbital bombardment, the Allied forces established a blockade. The 7 members of the Vrexian High Command were taken into custody to face trial for genocide before a multi-species tribunal. 6 months later, Peter returned to Elysium. The planet where New Haven once stood had been reclaimed. A memorial now marked the site of the colony, with 3 million lights representing those lost in the attack. But beyond the memorial, new buildings rose. Elysium had been chosen as the headquarters for the newly formed Galactic Cooperative, a union of free species dedicated to mutual protection and peaceful coexistence. Peter watched as ships from a dozen worlds landed at the new spaceport. Among them were former Vrexian colony worlds, now free to determine their own futures. "Governor Lawson wants to see you," said a young officer, approaching Peter with respect. Kate, now serving as the first human governor of the Galactic Cooperative, greeted him warmly in her new office. "The Defense Academy is ready," she told him. "We need someone to lead it, someone who understands what we fought for." Peter looked out the window at the stars, thinking of how far they had come. From the ashes of one colony, humanity had risen to become a respected galactic power. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not just in military might, but in their commitment to justice for all sentient beings. "I'll do it," he said finally, "for those we lost, and for those who will come after us." The lesson of New Haven would never be forgotten. One colony's fall had awakened humanity's greatest strength, the unbreakable will to rise from the ashes, stronger than before.